meeting is being recorded.
This is Jerry Barr. Can you let me in, please?
You're in, Jerry. We can hear you.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, can I just say that you guys are absolutely adorable?
It's Halloween at Town Hall today.
I love it. That's a great spirit.
Can you guess what flower Susan is?
What kind? What kind of flower?
Sunflower.
Nope.
That's what I said too. It's much more clever than that.
Black-eyed Susan.
Exactly.
You get a prize later.
Thank you. Woohoo! I had to think about it. I knew it was something to do with her name, and I couldn't remember the flower. How's that for pathetic?
That is good. No one else could get it. So
JR got it.
that's why you're the president, Vanessa.
Well, actually, Black-eyed Susans, when we lived up in Ohio, we had a whole field around our property, and we put in Black-eyed Susans all around the backyard. They look beautiful.
Oh yeah, I bet that looked beautiful.
Okay, every time I log in here, my screen changes on me. It's very frustrating. Oh, Neil, you look hot, baby.
Oh.
I'm Florona from Progressive this year.
I love it.
Oh my God, that is, oh. I was wondering who the new staff member was. Oh,
I told the board we had some HR situations happening, so I figure it's best just maybe show you guys.
Did you drive in that way, Neil?
I did, and you would not believe how professional the Dunkin' on campus was when I was in their drive-through.
You want to say more before we start recording?
So
Too late, already
usually-
recorded.
yeah, no, we already started. So I usually get a water, and this morning I wasn't thinking. I just got my coffee, and I drove up. They're like, "Oh, don't you normally get a water as well?" And and they did it with a straight face. I was really impressed.
I like it.
Unlike the rest of us, we took some time to look at him in the eye.
Hey, David,
So,
for
Yeah.
Halloween, I dyed my hair gray.
You did what?
dyed it gray.
Oh, me too.
Well, his usual blonde hair, you know.
Yeah, right. I got some old pictures.
So it is now 10:01 with some good chuckles this morning. I love that we have many residents on today. So welcome, we appreciate this. For those of you who have not joined before, for our workshop, for our Zoom workshop, we don't do public comment at the beginning, but we will have open opportunities at each individual discussion item. If anybody would like to chime in, we always have our rule of thumb of board members go first, and then I open it up to public comment. So we can also use the chat button if you feel like you want to do a chat. We try really hard to pay attention to that. Those that are on for your reaction, you could do, you can raise your hand. You can wave your hand in the video, and usually somebody will spy that. So again, thank you all for joining. I'll call the meeting to order. I believe we have a quorum. Yes, I see that.
Yes.
Is everybody on? Or are we missing Mary Ann?
I do not see Mary Ann.
Okay, I'm not sure she was going to be able to join us or not. I know she's trying to juggle regular job responsibilities too. So do I have a motion to adopt the agenda?
So moved. Brian got it.
Okay, so Brian and David, you
I'll
a second?
Yeah.
Perfect. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Perfect. Then we will move on to discussion items. Facility reopening. Nikki, did you want to start with your facilities reopening, or did somebody else want to start in?
I'm good with starting. I can make it short, simple, and sweet for y'all today.
Thanks.
So as far as the facility reopening from October 2nd through the 29th, pool attendance has been at a normal rate. We haven't reached any capacity numbers. We haven't had any issues with the tables, chairs, or loungers. The gym is doing well. No concerns with the reservations as of yet. Basketball, we've had a maximum of 11 residents. We have a capacity of 10. So we're still reminding a few folks, just, hey, stay on the sidelines. But they've been doing a really good job since we reopened the second time. Volleyball, our team logged 15 residents utilizing the court. But so far, we haven't received any additional concerns with this. Tennis courts, Vanessa, I know you mentioned this at the board meeting on Wednesday, but our team provided a tennis audit for the Recreation Committee because there was concerns on capacity. But after we reviewed the report with the committee, we realized that there's no capacity on the courts during this time. So we're going to keep the schedule as is. At the complex, our team has been reviewing or seeing spectators not wearing facial masks. So the sports leagues were informed on the consequences. So next time practices will be canceled if we see coaches without facial masks. And if a spectator does not wear a facial mask, spectator viewing will be terminated. And then the last, but finally, is the playgrounds. We placed additional signage since the last meeting at the playgrounds to inform residents facial mask guidelines are required. As of right now, our team has reported over 22 incidents of residents not abiding by the facial mask guidelines. And I will take any questions that you all have to offer. Thank you.
Board, any comments or questions?
I have one comment. I think JR is probably on. We always put our Friday flash update and stuff like that. I think it would be good to have a lead-in paragraph. We know Europe is exploding. We know the United States has got a thing there. I really think it would be good because if it reads standard, people just gloss over it. But the first paragraph ought to say, hey, we're going to take this serious. We want to keep things open. Masks matter. And please, we're trying to work with you to keep everything open.
Yeah, I agree with Brian's point. Nikki, I appreciated your summary. And when I read the last couple items that you just highlighted now, the playgrounds and the CCFC with spectators, every time I walk by a playground, I see non-mask wearing. I don't take pictures, but I do not see mask wearing. So that's consistent with your finding of 22 incidents. I think we need to stress, in adding to Brian's point, just to say there are consequences for non-compliance. And consequence means, we'll close down spectators and we'll close down playgrounds again. It's all about safety, and things are exploding.
Well, and that's why I was trying to say, let's start it with, look what's happening in Europe with all the lockdowns. Look what's happening in New York again. Look what's happening in 30 plus states in the United States. We're trying desperately hard to be smart here too.
Other comments from the board? Any comment? Go ahead.
Yeah, just one other clarification. I know I've asked this before, just to clarify. Nikki, when you do the report and the capacity, that is the regular capacity when everything is full time. Is that correct? Like capacity is East Village 32. Is that what it was 12 months ago, or is that our revised capacity? I mean, just what is that? Which capacity?
That is our revised. That's our revised capacity.
Okay, so it's a temporary revised capacity for now.
Correct. Yes. Sir.
Okay. Okay. Thank you. Thank you. And we're not even approaching that. I guess North Village came the closest, 31 out of 35.
Correct.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
Other board comments? I will offer opportunities for any public comment. If you have any questions or comments, you can raise your hand. Again, it's 3 minutes maximum. And David is our handy timekeeper. Is there any comments? I don't see any hands raised. Is there any waving in the screens?
There is no waving. I know that we were going to talk about a debrief on the Rocktoberfest. Was that going to be here or at the end of our discussion today?
I guess we can do it now if you'd like to. Yeah, because it's not specifically on here.
Yeah, because we had talked about debriefing before we go into the next one, because the next event, anyway, we're going to debrief.
Is now, Brian, what were you saying?
Nothing.
Okay, we can go ahead and I think it's going to be a quick debrief, correct?
Yeah, yeah.
I don't. Okay,
Yeah.
go ahead.
What went well? What concerns were there?
Susanna, is this a now good time to do this, or
Yes,
JR?
it is.
Okay,
JR is on the
Perfect.
call, so he can
Perfect.
give you some numbers.
excellent. JR is now good.
Yep, that's fine.
Awesome, thank you. Go ahead. You have the floor.
Oh, okay, thanks. As far as any major issues, I don't like to say there were none, but there were none. Those that were there were in compliance with masks. Safety protocols were followed. We decided to move the event to the turf field. We were able to expand our footprint a little bit more. So instead of the 74 pods, we were able to expand to 95 at that point. For the event, we had approximately 319 residents in attendance. 25 groups no-showed. Of that, 11 had picked up their wristbands. 9 were last-minute additions to the wait list because we did go and add an additional 21 groups. And 5 made no contact and did not pick up the wristband. So as I said, we had 319 residents attend that event. We are also for the next 2 for the Founders Day and the holiday concert, we're going to keep that footprint of 95 pods. And the special events committee had voted on, and there will be tables and chairs like we normally set out for a musical performance. They'll be set out for both of those events as well.
And parking went okay?
Parking went fine. We had our rec team involved with that, and they did a tremendous job. There were no issues. Response has been positive from people who attended. But like I said, there's no event. I've yet to work the perfect event, but everything we had laid out that we wanted to see implemented worked.
Okay.
And how many people are on the wait list for November?
For November, there are 106.
On the wait list, or 106 people and 11 on the wait?
No, 106 on the wait list. The event, the 95 pods are already reserved.
Okay.
And for those that didn't show up and didn't follow through, is there a consequence? I mean, are they negated from the November event?
For those that made no contact at all, unless they were a last minute add in because we were calling people on
Right.
Friday afternoon when we
Yeah.
expanded. If for those that made no contact, if they got in and made a reservation, their reservation was declined for the next event.
Okay. And these are resident only, right?
Correct.
So
And the
your
residents,
go ahead.
residents are when they make their reservation, they receive their email. When they receive their follow-up, they are told in there that this is a resident-only event that's in keeping with the policies we have right now for our pools and other amenities, that they cannot bring non-residents to events.
Okay. And so a pod, how many does a pod hold? I'm just curious.
6.
Okay. So if you had a family of 8, could you, if you had a family of 10, could you reserve 2 pods?
You can. We actually had that happen with the last event.
Okay.
They had 2, and I think they actually ended up merging because they sat towards the back, but they had,
Okay.
I think there was 9 people in it.
Okay. As a person who did not attend and who did watch it on streaming, I think it was 2 cameras. That was nice to see. I know that was on Facebook. The only suggestion I had was from some residents who says, I don't go to Facebook. I will not sign on to Facebook. Is there another opportunity, another option for streaming?
They don't have to log on to Facebook. Since our page is technically a business page, you don't need to have an account. When you go to the page, it'll ask you if you want to log in or sign up. You could just hit not now, and you have full access to the page.
So are we communicating that very clearly? Or I would suggest that, because they read things but said I can't get it because I'm not going to sign on to Facebook. So I do Facebook, so I didn't know that was a non-option, or the option of not signing up. But can we communicate that so that anyone can see the streaming and you don't have to sign up for Facebook?
Yeah, that's not a problem.
I think that would be very helpful. I thought that the 2 cameras was great. It worked well. Yeah, we had a few hiccups early on because it was the first time, but yeah, it went really well. I mean, Patrick was manning the equipment there, and it was a good result. And you had worldwide presence. I saw 3 separate countries logging in. Getting the Celebration brand out there. I know.
A couple quick comments. JR, what is the process for those that are on the wait list? How many do we actually go through? Because I know that I've had some founding residents that have reached out that have expressed concerns because they were put on the wait list and were surprised. Can you share with us just kind of how quickly you went through, how quickly you had your wait list that was resolved? Do you know what I mean?
For the Oktoberfest, we ended up pulling in 23 groups that were on the wait list that eventually got brought back in once we added the capacity. The reservations for Founders Day probably closed in about 40 minutes, which is quick. I mean, it's not but that's we're just following with what the board had approved early on as far as limiting capacity, and that's why we cut them off at 95.
I had the other day at the board meeting that I thought we could have held more people on the fields and we could have had overflow and back. I think there was more room for stuff.
That's my question would be, JR, if you could kind of review if you think there's a way for us to increase our number of pods safely, or if we can figure out how to do some social distancing away from the main field. That's just, if you can do that and maybe get back to the board just by email and we can see if we can get it resolved quickly on from a board standpoint, if you need any voting or anything like that. Is that reasonable?
Yeah, just to let everyone know, I mean, we did put the pods were 6 feet in distance.
Right.
for the event. I mean, so anything that would get added at this point would probably have to be back onto the grass and field too.
Right. If we could do that,
Yeah.
I think that's
That's
kind of
fine.
what I think that's what we're talking
fine.
about too, is if we can expand a little bit beyond where we're at now without minimizing or making our 6 foot distancing any smaller. So if you can use any of the area around the field that was not currently in use. Is that what you're thinking, Brian? Because you were there.
Exactly what I'm thinking, and the reason for my argument is twofold. I've talked to people, someone as recently as yesterday, who said in the back of the grass field and said they could see and hear perfectly. And we know we had no shows and combinations of pods last time. So even people that we think may be setting in the grass will probably find themselves moving up.
Okay.
Right.
So JR, we'll just task you with kind of looking to see if there's anything that we can expand that anywhere beyond not changing the 6 foot distancing, but see if there's any other solutions you can come up with. Is that? And if I can't, then, or if your answer is I can't safely, then that's okay too. But we just want to make sure that we're exercising all the possibilities.
Okay.
Thank you so much. Because that was not an agenda item, I wanted to make sure we covered it because we want to make sure that we communicate it effectively to the residents as well as get some feedback from JR. Is there anything else with regards to facilities reopening or anything of that nature? Okay, then we'll go ahead and move on. Halloween. You want to? We have obviously tomorrow, and our displays are front and center on our Zoom screen with how closely the holiday is. We have signs everywhere. I have received a couple of emails with regards to just concerns with the CDC guidelines. There were some residents that had expressed that they do not believe that is consistent with CDC guidelines. However, we did go through and verified on the website that indeed door-to-door trick-or-treating is being discouraged and advised alternative plans per the CDC. So I just wanted to make sure that we had that covered again, that is the recommendation. Obviously, we cannot stop people from going door to door, but we encourage residents, if they do not want to participate, keep your perch light off. If you want to block off your porch, do that, however you feel you need to. And residents, as you're going around, if you choose to go ahead and go door to door, please be respectful. And if they have their porch lights off or if they have it blocked off, just please ask your children not to go on those particular properties. Comments from any staff members or board members regarding this?
We had one of our main concerns going back to our early discussions in maybe July or latest August was about non-residents. And so I know that we asked the sheriff's office to provide coverage similar to, or at least equivalent to last year. Do we have confirmation of what the sheriff coverage will be tomorrow?
Vanessa, can I chime in?
Absolutely. Go ahead, JR. Thank you.
Last update I had was that they were sending 10 traffic units and 6 community service units. That was as of last week.
Okay. And I think that's consistent with last year. I think it was 16 last year or something. But anyway, that's very good news. Thank you, JR.
It's more than the 8 that they originally promised. So
right. Yeah, they downsized it from last year. But anyway, we had asked for the same as last year. Right. And we hope that there's no traffic. That is our aim. Yeah. Or I'll speak for myself. I hope there's no traffic.
There's thank you, JR. Is there any other questions or any comments from board members?
No.
No. I'll open this up to again public comment. If there's anybody that has a comment regarding this, raise your hand. 3 minutes minimum, please, or maximum, please.
No.
Okay, perfect. Are we all set?
No, all set.
Perfect. Then we'll move on. Spring Lake Gardens administrative fee. Who would like to take that one?
So this is going to be, the committee is requesting to have a different, lower administrative fee that goes on the budget. Because they have some reasons as far as services go. And I believe that maybe Debbie Battolino from the committee is here to talk. Are you here, Debbie?
Yes.
Debbie, I would say, go ahead, Debbie, go ahead, please.
And then you should have gotten a spreadsheet that they had submitted kind of with the numbers that they were proposing.
Correct. Go ahead, Debbie.
Go ahead, Debbie.
Okay. Hi, this is Tom. I'm on the same video with her. So I'm the one that put the spreadsheet together. So basically what we're questioning is we're getting charged the same administration fee as all the townhomes in the other 12 service areas. And per section 12(1)B, it says that the per unit is for service areas receiving the same services, and we aren't. And the other part of 12(1)B that says that it should be a reasonable administrative charge, and we don't think eating 30% of the total service area budget is reasonable. So it comes out to like $3,000 a month that we're paying just for landscaping, admin fees just for the landscaping.
When the other service areas have, 8 or 9 services?
They're providing anywhere from 8 to 11 different services for the other
And we
12
have,
townhome service areas.
and we have landscaping. So basically, that's it. It's very simple.
Thank you, Debbie. I will open this up to, I don't know if Tim or Susanna or anybody management wise with regards to the service areas would like to chime in.
Tim, do you want to chime in?
Tell you what, let me make this easier. I put together an exhibit for the board. The other service areas have expense items for something like termite bonds, water, electricity, which we don't have for Spring Lake Gardens. But what those actually involve is a bill being sent to the lockbox in Arizona cutting a check. They're not taking management time, and I'll let Susanna and Tim speak to that in a minute. As I understand it, management time is predominantly spent on items of landscape and irrigation management, regardless of which service area you talk about. The $20 a household is being spread evenly across all service areas. And the reason I got 30% is because there's 543 homes and there's 152 people or house units in Spring Lake Gardens. This is, at the end of the day, a zero-sum game. So if we decrease Spring Lake Gardens, we've got to increase the other service areas or make a decision to increase for all of the other homeowners in Celebration. Tim, because I was in a phone call with the service committee from Spring Lake Gardens, stated that probably 70% of the time is actually going to Spring Lake Gardens and 50% to Spring Lakes overall. So, you can argue fairness, but fairness is a very hard thing to do.
Wait, excuse me.
Once you get into time, they aren't tracking the time. So we don't see him out here and we don't see anybody out here. So unless he's specifically tracking his time to every service area, and even if he was, the allocation isn't based on time. It's based on unit.
And it's based on services.
And
So no matter what you say, the services are not equal.
Tom and Debbie, I'm going to ask right now. The board has the floor. So I want to make sure that everybody. We'll get back to you, but I want to make sure that that we're being respectful and not interrupting each other. Brian, go ahead.
No, I'll answer the question. As I understand it, a lot of these areas where there's expense in other service areas are items where town hall management is really not spending any time per se, because there's just a water bill that comes in monthly, and the water bill is just a process check. So yes, there's an expense, but say, okay, there's a line item. So that must mean it's 1/8 or 1/9 of the time just isn't reality. And I can respect that. Yes, we don't have time tracking by service area, but that would just seem to be totally counterproductive. It would be a full-time job for someone just to keep track of where time is being spent.
And it shouldn't be.
I'm going to open this up again to any other board member. Then
has an opinion.
Yeah. So is Tim or Susanna, do either of you want to share with us kind of, I agree with Brian's concerns. The reality is landscaping, regardless of the service area, is the primary amount of time they had to do with it. They have to deal with it. But is there any comments with regards to this with Tim or Susanna? Susanna, I'm asking you because you've actually had the responsibility beforehand, or Neil.
Yeah, no, Tim, do you want to input here?
He may
Okay,
have. Go ahead, Susanna.
okay,
There
so
we go.
just,
Can you hear me now?
Oh, there we go. Yeah, now we can hear you now. We're good. Go ahead.
All right, perfect. I've had issues with mute. So I agree with what Brian was saying. I do spend a lot of time out there, even though it's landscaping with one service that we provide them, it's still a huge portion of my time is spent out there.
okay, so I'll add to that a little bit. Obviously, there's other items that are on say some of the other service area budgets or the reserve schedule, which is painting or roofing. But those things, painting is every 5 to 7 years, so you're not doing that on a daily basis. There's roof replacement that happens at least 15 years, so that's not a daily task. There's also roof repairs. But if there aren't any leaks, you're not doing that. So landscape is basically, we know how much aesthetics the landscape contributes to a home. And so that is an ongoing basis because plants die, you have irrigation repairs you have to make. I remember walking with the landscaper every week. And because Spring Lake is the largest service area we have with the most amount of homes and the most amount of land. That's at least what I can speak to as far as work goes.
Thank you. Neil,
Vanessa?
anything to, yeah, I was gonna say,
I'm
Neil,
sorry.
anything to add? Go ahead.
It's entirely possible. I haven't seen all the documentations or the documents that have been circulated regarding this. And, but from what I have seen and what has been submitted and what has kind of come across my desk, what I'm not seeing is what our homeowners and our representatives from this particular service area, what is the outcome that they're actually wanting to see? I saw a spreadsheet, I saw some numbers. I can't overly agree that we should just eliminate time. Time is the most expensive thing Celebration pays for in its assessments, time meaning staff. So I don't think we're going to get to any solution today, and I don't think this workshop's intended to come to that solution, but I would like to see what the homeowners that are involved in this, what's their ideal outcome that they're wanting from it, so that at least the board and my team have some direction on where we go with it. That's not a criticism or a challenge. I just think that's the one question I haven't asked or I haven't heard yet is, hey, here's our concerns, but I haven't heard what the solution that those homeowners want.
May I say something? This is Joe Silva.
Are we allowed to speak now?
I'm sorry. Yeah, sorry about that. I was trying to unmute myself. Give us just a minute on that, okay? And I just want to make sure that the board, and then I'll open it up to Mr. and Mrs. Silva. Go ahead. Board, anything? Okay, then go ahead, Mr. Silva, Mrs. Silva.
Thank you. I was having a problem unmuting until now. Your question is, what is the outcome? Well, first of all, the outcome, if we were to remain with landscaping in Spring Lake, that the fee be reasonable, number one. And I'm not even getting into the work that is performed because it has never been per contract. I can't, and I haven't been here that long. I've only been in Spring Lake. I've been in Celebration for 16 years, but only in Spring Lake for 3. And in the 3 years, the work hasn't been performed per contract on any given week. So it's a thing where we pay a fee and we don't get the work done. I mean, you guys can walk around like anybody else and look and see what's out here. It is not good. So what we have now are 7 bids that were received. We go from a low of 28.24% increase to a high of 71.75% increase. That's absolutely unacceptable. We're paying $88.14 right now for nothing.
Thank you.
I'm not done.
Joe? Yeah,
Well,
Joe, what would you like to pay? I guess that's, I'm sorry if I've just got a little too wordy, but I keep hearing, I don't like it, I don't like it, I don't like it. What's the number you want to see? And that's what we've not been given.
I've got an answer for you on that one. At our last meeting, I made a passionate plea that CROA step up to the plate and realize the situation that we are in this world today. In the midst of a pandemic, people are out of work, people are losing their homes, people don't know where the next dollar is coming from. But we're going to sit back and say, hey guys, look at least 28% to 71% more increase for a job that has never, ever been done properly. So my thing was, why don't you just eliminate it? And please don't tell me about the 75% that you need of homeowners
That's why.
to pull out of this.
Well, Joe, that's the law.
Excuse me, I'm not done.
Yeah.
If you look at the document, the Supplemental Declaration of Covenants, and you go to Article 4, point 1 and point 2. Point 2 is when you talk about the law and say the 75%. That article is generated to say, you know, we're happy as can be. The landscaping is fine, but hey, we don't like the color of the trucks of the landscapers, and we'd like to have somebody else. So that's incumbent upon us then to go out and get 75% of the people to make a change. But if you look at 4.1, that goes back to you people. CROA then can look and say, hey, look, let's look at this and say that it has never, ever worked. Never. So how can you people sit back and say, every year, every contract, Tim hears this constantly, Susanna used to hear it, with people complaining about the lack of the work being done to celebration standards. If you were citing people here, I mean, we would have to cite yourself. You'd have to go out and cite everybody's house. So what I'm suggesting is, why don't you sit back and take the bull by the horns and say, how do we do this? Just look and think of what relief you would have. You'd never hear from us again. You wouldn't hear from residents complaining. And guess what? You'd make us like the rest of Celebration. Yeah, this was a great idea. Somebody dreamt up, and it hasn't worked. You've gone through what? At least 5 landscapers. You'd think one of them could have done something properly, and it hasn't happened. So the ball's in your court. Don't tell me about 75%. You come back and come up with a decision to say, in the best interest of the homeowners in Spring Lake, of people in Celebration, make them equal to the rest.
Thank you, Mr. Silva. I'm going to actually, because I do want to recognize that what you're saying is extremely important. So please don't take this as me brushing you off at all. I hear what you're saying. I think the whole board understands what you're saying, but it's not something we're going to be able to solve now. So what I think we should do, please correct me if I'm wrong, is just have a workshop with the board, all board members, including all of the Spring Lake garden homes. It's just the garden homes, correct, that we're having this issue? Because townhomes already approved all of theirs, correct? Okay.
Townhomes
So-
are separate.
Okay, so why don't we have a workshop specific to this, make sure that all the board members can attend so everybody can hear, everybody has a chance to voice their opinions, and it's specific to those that are just with the gardens. That way we can make some solution, we can find some solutions, or at least know where everybody stands on the situation. Is that reasonable? Debbie, Joseph?
That is very reasonable, because to be honest with you, I didn't realize this was a general board of directors meeting this morning. We received notice about 10 o'clock last night, which was totally inappropriate to tell somebody at that time, oh, you're being invited to a meeting tomorrow morning at 10 a.m.
Right.
So I was under the assumption that after our last meeting, and Brian was at the last meeting, that his quote was he was taking this back to the board, and I thought this is what the expressions would be this morning.
It was, and but we didn't understand as a board. It's important we try to have these conversations as much as possible in a public forum so that we all understand at the same time what's happening, rather than relying upon email exchanges. So we try to do this in a public forum as much, so then we can determine what our next course of action is. So so thank you both, and anybody else that's on here for Spring Lake. I'm going to ask Susanna and Neil and Tim to reach out to all the board. We can come up with a solution on a time that can work.
We need, excuse
go
me.
ahead.
We need.
Yeah,
more
go ahead, Debbie.
We need a notice, like give us a week's notice.
Absolutely, I totally agree.
You want to invite all of Spring Lake Gardens, right? Not just the committee?
Correct. Yes, the all of Spring Lake Gardens. Correct. Yeah, no, I agree. We need to give some time. I agree.
Right, and an agenda would be nice too, because seriously, between Kevin, Joe, and I, we thought that this meeting was just going to be about Spring Lake. We'd never received an agenda.
Okay, I appreciate that. Thank you. So are we good with this? And I don't want you to feel like we're brushing this off at all. We want to make sure that it gets its due time. Are we good with that, Debbie and Joseph? Anybody else? I'm going to open it up in a minute.
That would be excellent.
Okay, Brian, go ahead.
I just want to tell them, after the last meeting, I did send an email. I did put together some exhibits and stuff, so I didn't drop the ball or forget our last meeting. So I want you to know that. Yes, you should have had more notice than 12 hours. So that was just wrong. And I agree, a group meeting would be a great way to proceed.
Okay, but I think the bigger thing is just it needed to be discussed in a public forum. So I think this is the time to do that. Is there anybody else are we good to move on from this? Like I said, I want to make sure it has its due service. Are we good?
May I just mention something, a little aside from the last meeting?
As long as it's very brief, because we still have a pretty big agenda, and I want to make sure that that you get what you have to say. Go ahead, but if you can wait, go ahead. I
will be very brief. At our last meeting, I had brought up the voting, how it's handled here in Celebration. And I won't get into it. You guys know how we vote. And Brian had said that was state law, that you sign your ballot. Well, I've contacted the Attorney General's office, and they kind of like chuckled when I told them what we were doing. And they said, no, that's not what you do. And they referred me to the Elections Commission, and I went over it with them. And they also said, you only sign an envelope when it is a mail-in ballot. You do not ever sign the ballot that you're voting on. So a point of information for you guys, and I hope that in the future you correct our voting procedures. I'm done.
Thank you. Well, we can address that again further further at the regular meeting now. Thank you. Are we all good with everything now? Thank you very much. And then just go ahead and get back with us, make sure we have at least a couple of weeks notice for the residents for Spring Lake, and then also getting as many board members as possible. Eileen, I'm going to move on from this topic. Okay. I'm sorry. I see your hands up. I'm going to try and move on here. I'm sorry. But we are going to talk about CCF Fields drainage and development. I would like to thank anybody who's joined with regards to the Spring Lake Gardens, that they're here. I appreciate that. CCF Fields, I believe there was a posting with your document, correct, Brian? You want to go ahead and start this? Go ahead.
Okay. You want me to just start off, Vanessa?
Yes, please go ahead.
Okay, so as we all know, we launched the fields in September of 2019. Really, we came up with some rules and we kind of watched them evolve, and then COVID hit. We've put a moratorium in place on all capital improvement spending through June 30, 2021, and now we're taking a fresh look at the civic corridor. So what I wanted to do was just write a complete rethink document. I have sent this to the board and a few people in management. It got posted so that the public can see it. Today's meeting is not about making a decision. It's about discussing the idea. If someone says, hey, it's dumb, it can be dumb, or change this part, but it seems like it would be wise to brainstorm. So what I'd like to do is, like, on point number one here, we now know, we've done 2 budgets, that we are subsidizing the civic corridor fields to the tune of about a little bit more than $300,000 a year, or about $70 per home. That's real money. That's every single homeowner that gets that. That's just reality. We've had conversation with the sport leagues and stuff like that. When you look at the realities of COVID and stuff like that, I don't see this number changing radically. So if you start with that's how much money we're losing, okay, it's an asset to the community, but then I am proposing that it ought to be for the benefit of the community. In item 2, when fields were opened in September of 2009, they were locked down. This created the need for employees to manage and oversee the corridor fields. We've since then done things like add security cameras in place so that we have better control over who's accessing it and could watch for damage. We're a year wiser. So I put together a proposal for discussion. Right now, there are 3 fields out there. There are 2 grass fields, and there is the AstroTurf field. Lots of times, I believe the grass fields get used because people don't want to pay for the AstroTurf field. I would propose that, and we've been looking at other adult sports, and every time we start doing things in a brand new location, we run into the issues of, okay, we need bathrooms, we need lights, we need this, we need that. The civic corridor, I would like to see us use it more and more. So my proposal, quite specifically, and Patrick, can you bounce down a little so I can see the rest of the page? I would like to see the first 2 fields be for soccer, lacrosse, etc. It could be for adults, it can be for kids. I don't care if we rent it out. We can rent it out sometimes if we want to, but make those like they are. Take the 3rd grass field and let's make it for adult sports. And when we talk adult sports here, I'm specifically proposing pickleball, croquet. I believe, I haven't personally measured it, but I've walked out there many times. They're big fields. I think we can get them both on there. We already have fences. We have dividers. We have drainage. And we'll talk about drainage needing to be fixed a little more here later. But, field condition, I think, should be more cost efficient there than anywhere else. And we've got lights and we've got bathrooms. That just saves us money. The concert in October was great. That's all the feedback we've had has been consistent on that. Do we have things we want to improve? Yes, that will be life, but it worked well. Lot D, I'll be honest, I was shocked at how well it worked for parking. And I've heard other people say so too. You know, if it was wet, would it work that well? So maybe we need to change Lot D a little for drainage and refurbish it better for parking when it's wet. But if we had adult sports and kids sports back there in those 3 fields, along with concerts and other stuff, we're going to need a place for parking. Maybe Lot D could be parking. Could we take the perimeter of Lot D or the corridor and have a walking track? The high school track is not available to residents. I have had people ask me, can I get a walking track? And I know other board members have too. I've had people say, could you get workout stations? Maybe we could put workout stations down on Lot B. People have asked for community gardens. Could we take Lot B, which is the one closer to the CCD building, and have community gardens down there? So in 9, what I'm really saying is let's not lock down the civic corridor anymore. Let's have a key card system, just like we do with the pools. If you're a resident, you can use your key card to get in. You can use your key card to get out. We have operating hours it could be from 8 in the morning or 7 in the morning until 9 at night. Just like with the pools, if it's shut down, you can't get in. So we still have access control. You know, I've heard about tennis courts. You could refurbish our conversation with the school system about the tennis courts there and some stuff like that. But really trying to say, if residents are paying $70 a year for the civic corridor, let's make it so all residents can access it. They can access it for more things. It'll be cheaper to do the stuff out there that we need to do than to start anew everywhere else and have the not in my neighborhood conversation. So I've rattled through this. You've had a chance to read it, open it up for conversation for everybody. This is a good idea. This is a dumb idea. If it is a good idea, then I'd like us to explore it more. We have the moratorium towards June 30th. I'm sure probably Mike will talk later about the drainage review, but you know, we can do drawings. We could get this organized. We could be ready to hit the road rolling as we get towards the summer of next year, so that we're actually moving towards making the civic corridor more usable, more broadly usable, and achieving greater access for everybody. So that's my spiel, and open it up.
Thank you, Brian. I appreciate that. I'll bring some brief perspective from back when we first received the civic corridor from the Celebration Company back several years ago. When we were planning the civic corridor at the time on the board, and Diana was there also, it was not discussed if we were going to be locking it down. It was going to be treated like a regular field. The goal and the purpose at that time of having that civic corridor was it provided an opportunity for those that had all activities and things like that in their community park to shift it to the civic corridor. That was a big conversation we had, is how can we free up our community parks for the neighbors to go down and play ball in their own park rather than having leagues and fields all occupied at the time. Boards change, dynamics change, needs change within the community, and it has evolved. I think COVID has brought us back to the, okay, what do we really need to do? How do we make it work? And I think that this is a very good plan. I want to make sure that we also recognize that it shouldn't be just about the CCF fields. I think it needs to be about the whole community, all of our community parks. How can we, do we do croquet down toward East Lawn? How do we make all these things work for everybody? So Diana, I mentioned briefly, you and I were on the board when it first started. Did you want to share anything? And then again, I'll open it up to the board. Our procedure is board, and then I'll open it up to general comments from the community. Go ahead, Diana.
First of all, I'd like to thank Brian for monetizing this, because I think when you think about $70 per house per year, it really seems like that ends up being a not wise financial move. That we thought that those, I think at the time we got those fields, we didn't see them as a commercial venture, and I think it sort of turned into a commercial venture by leasing it out to the sports teams here in town and some of the other teams that use that asset. I love these proposals for putting in extra amenities. I hadn't thought about, putting things in other parks, so I thought we wanted to focus just on the field, but I think we need to look at that as well. I know pickleball is, definitely up there on the list of things that everyone wants, but this is a great opportunity to look at that, and it's worth investing the money do the studies to see what we need to make that transition. I personally think the walking track is a great idea out there. First of all, it's going to, people will use it, and the community gardens, a place that we can put those, especially in light of the pandemic. I know people are thinking more of that and thinking more of what they can do to grow their food locally. I think that's a great opportunity. So I'd like to just go full steam ahead on this and make sure that when we do have the money, when we are ready to do capital improvements in June, that we're ready to make these changes happen.
Thank you, Diana. Any other board members, board comments?
Yeah, this is David. I've responded by email when I saw a draft of this, I think 3 weeks ago or so. This is great. I think the overall premise, I guess two overall premises. One is opening up the CCFC, since we're all paying for that, opening it up and exploring the various options there, not just the fields, but other options. I know JR has had, we've had concerts there, we had movies there, more are planned. So as we talk about opening up, looking at that, I know that there's rental of a stage. What would, when you start to talk about this, what might be, if we do more concerts, what might be the option for purchasing a stage, a movable stage, rather than having a trucked in? And I don't know the cost benefit on that. But just looking at the various assets there. And I know that we also, I think a couple months ago, tasked management to look at all of the community parks, look at all the amenities and what might be placed where and what might be the feasibility. And I think the initial cost for over in East Village for lawn sports was higher than we had thought. So, but what might be some various options? As we look at something like a community garden, I think back to the dog park. We had a committee that researched a lot of best practices across the country. We could also have an ad hoc group that could research best practices across the country with community gardens. So what might make it functional and what might make it, what a lot of what we do is world class. The other thought I have is since we now have lights and we have cameras and so forth, we can start phasing some of this in immediately. We don't need an engineering study to unlock the doors, should we choose to move forward. We can have that available, the walking area that's available now. So we can, can look at starting some phasing. I mean, there may be something that's a $50,000 solution. There may be something else that's $250,000. But some of this could be phased in more quickly. But I think it's a great jump start. Brian, I don't know, did you mention parking in your verbal? I think you wrote up about parking, maybe some rehabbing of an area for parking. And I know we've.
Yeah, I mentioned that there. Okay.
But no, I think this was all, this is excellent. I think this is what we need to be doing, opening it up, the whole area. When we were given the land, just as a reminder, the board knows this, but there was one parcel that was not ours. It was given to the golf club, golf course, and so we purchased that a couple of years ago. So we have everything but the CDD parcel now. So it's time to be looking at what might be the best options. And it doesn't all have to be sports. I mean, you talk about the community garden, again, and it doesn't have to be high intensity, just like a walking track, it would be excellent. Or walking, place.
Thank you, David.
Yeah.
I think Kevin was on, I don't know if he's still on or not.
Yep,
I'm sorry.
I saw I'm here.
Oh, there you are. Okay, there you are.
No, overall, I absolutely love everything that Brian did mention. This is all things that we've been hearing throughout the years since the fields were constructed, even before. Having the access and this open access to the community, I'll be very honest, I'm on the same page as everybody else. I don't know when that changed to go ahead and fence that off and put that fence up. I remember there was conversation, but frankly, it escapes me the full reason why that happens. If we can go ahead and get a walking track in there, getting that area used full, you know, as much as possible from dusk to dawn kind of a situation. Down in that area where it's, I'm going to call it the turnarounds, that area, there was actually supposed to be there was a station for some workout equipment, stationary workout equipment. So that was part of the plan. It was a budgetary item that it just wasn't possible, but that could definitely be revisited. I know that the county, when we were talking about grant money or whatever the case was, they were actually offering or discussing a technology park playgrounds kind of a situation. I don't entirely know what that means, but that was something that was on their horizon as well. So we'll definitely see. I think we should continue those options and really focus on making that area usable by all with that dollar figure that they're spending.
Thank you, Kevin. Go ahead, Brian. You're mute. You're on mute. Still on mute. There you go.
The one thing I want to point out to everybody is anything and everything that we can get out on the civic corridor has a huge advantage because we have the lights and we have the bathrooms, we have the pumping stations. So there's a bathroom in the pavilion right by the fields. You know, there is a bathroom in the CCD building. There's a bathrooms in the libraries. There are real advantages from a cost perspective to utilize the civic corridor space in the most efficient manner possible and to get as much out there as possible, because we can do it faster, we can do it more efficiently and cheaper. And being very honest with you, coming into the COVID second wave or whatever wave we're in right now and stuff like that, being speedy and cost efficient has real value.
Agreed. Thank you, Brian. Any other comments from the board? Then David, I'm going to ask you to be my timekeeper again.
Sure.
I will open this to public comment, and then I'll open it to Mike to discuss any the drainage issues. Go ahead, Steve Northridge. Go ahead, please. You're not. I think you're on mute. There you go. You're good. Go ahead.
Oh, thank you, Steve Northridge, 1130 Tapster Drive. I very much like the whole concept here. I'm really glad to see that this is something that could potentially be feasible, and the leveraging of the existing facility is certainly very appealing. Obviously, we have interest in the pickleball courts we've spoke about many times, and really appreciate the consideration here. But is there a way that we can get engaged to help move this forward as a group from pickleball? So if there's a way we can do that, we'd certainly appreciate the ability to get engaged, and would love that opportunity. So that's number one thing. The second thing is just a comment about the tennis at 851. Certainly, I've enjoyed seeing more tennis courts, and I'd love to see that derelict property next to the school being repaired. So, but I do recall we went through the pickleball. I think one of the big issues was they wouldn't allow the use of that during school hours, and that may be a bit of an issue, but that's a sidebar. But in general, the concept is great, and maybe you can reapproach the school board again, maybe they consider it again. But anyway, bottom line is surely would be appreciative of being able to get engaged as a pickleball group into this to see how we can move some of this forward and get things growing. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Steve. I appreciate your engagement in the process. Joseph, I believe you raised your hand next. Go ahead, Joseph.
Thank you. Joseph Linehan, 1258 Celebration Avenue. I just wanted to point out two specific definitions. First off, when we say commercial venture for these fields, we need to remember that almost every amenity we have here at Celebration is also a commercial venture and is available for rent within Celebration residents and for others outside of Celebration. So to single out the CCF field facility as a sole commercial venture, and it was intended that way, it's kind of a misinformation. It is along with all the other guidelines that we've used for any other facility that is rented out. Number two is lockdown. When we talk about lockdown, from day one, the committee that set the rules and worked on this wanted open access during operational hours when available for Celebration residents, including special events, including open fields, including capability to get in there during the regular operating hours. That had always been part of it. Why this lockdown perception is being perpetuated, I'm not sure. And that probably has to do just from the lack of access that people were given, which can be corrected by following those initial guidelines and recommendations that the committee provided. Those lockdowns, again, are also like any other facility. We don't leave Heritage Hall open all the time. We don't leave the 851 building open all the time. We don't leave Jones Room open all the time. We do not leave the pools open all the time. So there are specific hours and guidelines that were followed in tangent with all the other facilities for the field. Can we address those? Yes. Can they be looked at? Yes. But we do need to not single out this field as being dealt with differently because it is not. It's being handled the same way as any other facility. And to that point as well, we also need to see comparisons to what other facilities cost. So if you're going to say there's a per home facility or a per home cost to this facility, let's see what the pools cost us per home. Can we see what 851 building costs us per home? That way we have the ability to make a proper comparison. Thank you.
Thank you, Joseph. Eileen, before I open it up to you, I'm going to go, Brian, you wanted to go ahead and make a comment? I'll open it to you in a second, Eileen.
Okay, I would like to just respond to Joseph. First of all, I think Joseph's comments are valid. I was on the board in 18, 19, and have been in 20. Kevin was too, and David. It was originally put in place, and I think it was stated, how did we get here? Well, how we got here is there was going to be a cost, and originally, I think if you go all the way back to Steve Waring, I mean, let's just be honest here, there was a thought that, ESPN would rent this thing a lot. Was this thing going to be a moneymaker? Was this thing going to be break even? My point of bringing out the $70 is not to say that that's exorbitant compared to other amenities. Amenities cost money, but everybody's allowed to go to a pool. What I think really where it doesn't matter what happened in the past, reality is I think the board now realizes, okay, this is where we're at. We've now went through 2 budget cycles. This is what it cost, and pools cost money and other stuff too. You're 100% correct. The question is, how do we make it fairest for the most residents going forward and make it most accessible? And I think that is a difference probably than was had in 2018 when it's open. It's or really being actively built. And I agree with you that the committees had thoughts, and I can remember certain board members were more adamant on the other side, and we are where we are today. We've learned a lot and we're evolving. So I agree with Joseph, but that's kind of how we're at today.
Thank you, Brian. Eileen, I'll open it up to you, please.
Hi, Eileen Barr, 1138 Mosaic Drive. I'm sort of a little lost for words. I've waited sort of 5 years to say something, so I can't quite figure out where to start. But one of the biggest problems with not putting other activities out on the civic corridor is that we've created, and I've said this from day one, a dead area during the day. And it's unsafe. It's sad to look at. I just love the idea of finally making this a real athletic facility for all residents. I agree with both Brian and Joe that when the in-town areas were being used by all the league play, they are very expensive. They needed to be redone all the time. I and I know Joseph feels the same way, don't want to see goals all over the place, particularly ones that we don't own, that hopefully we can contain most of the real serious sports play out to the civic corridor, either through league play or through our vendors, or like the swimming pools and the tennis court, just on an ad hoc basis by residents. I'm sure I have plenty more to say, but I think this is a wonderful start. Great ideas. And I'm so happy to see so many board members getting behind it. Thank you.
Thank you, Eileen. I'll open this to any other comments or questions from the public. Again, please keep them to 3 minutes or less. I'll ask for the board to get some assistance in helping to identify if I miss it. Comments? Last call. Perfect, all set. Then on this particular item, is there any other board comment that before we close out on this, and what you would like the next step to be, or staff members for that matter?
Just a question, Brian, just in the foundation of this, when you talk about that one field, that presumes that the usage is not, we're not using all fields most of the time. That presumes that it's, if you will, low volume, low occupancy on that one field. And so to convert it, it's going to have no net loss in terms of availability for items. Is that correct? Or I just don't know.
Yes, but to be perfectly blunt, I'm saying 2 fields is enough. If we had a more expensive rate for the asphalt or the turf field, so people would use the grass fields for practice, I'm saying charge the same rate for the turf field and the one grass field. They're going to be there. Find a fair way to let different sports groups use one or the other, book them out. I'm saying convert the third field so that it's being utilized. There's no reason why we can't have 2 and 3 and 4 things going on out there.
Okay, got it.
That is the vision. Let residents get full access to many different sports opportunities. Okay. As far as next steps, but as I've heard nothing negative today, then let's charge management to start thinking about what this would look like. Drainage does matter when we go to Michael next, which needs to be the next part of this. But then let's start talking about what it would actually look like. David had a good idea. If we're going to start thinking about a community garden, if we're going to think about a walking track, if we're going to set up pickleball, that's the pickleball group. I'd like to get croquet out there somehow. I mean, I'm saying get stuff out there where it's most cost efficient, invest for the long term, and let's figure out what it looks like. It's not going to be a 1-week project. We're going to need to give it some time to properly do it, but let's get organized and charge someone in management with get organized vision out there.
And just
David, go ahead.
Just a little sidebar on that is it may be that croquet is better suited in one of the community parks. I don't know, because based on the grass that's already there. So just looking at where might croquet best fit. Might it be one of those fields? Might it be something that's not yet developed? Might it be something in one of the villages?
And let me say this. When we looked at East Village and got our much more expensive croquet, as we learned we'd have to replace all the grass in East Village. We learned then that we still had lighting issues, bathroom issues and everything. So I'm saying if we can find a way to take that one field and make it both croquet and pickleball, you may, and I'm going to be sexist here, you may find out you got a bunch of men playing pickleball and their wives all playing croquet and stuff like that, and they're all at the same place and they've all got lights in the evening and they've got a bathroom and it's wonderful weather outside right now. So I'm trying to make it so it is as efficient and multi-user friendly for residents as possible.
Thank you, and that was highly sexist, just saying, Brian.
Well, it could be the other way around. Could be the women playing pickleball.
We listen to the residents, you know.
And maybe Neil will, I don't know which side he would go on based on today.
Right.
No comment.
So I'll take that 1953 adage and continue on. So on that note, Mike, did you want to go ahead and chime in with regards to what you have discovered, and if you have any thoughts about your drainage and things like that? It's all yours.
Sure thing. Can everybody hear me?
Yeah.
Yes, you're good.
Well, we had a MBV engineering come out a couple weeks ago to do a site visit. The main reason is to look at the irrigation issues, but also look at the whole corridor itself, to see what we're working with as we want to add these amenities to the area. MBV, it is in the packet, provided a quote, and basically this is a quote to do the initial investigation. They've already done a fair amount. When they did come out here, I met with them a couple hours after that site visit to go over all the documentation that we had on drawings, surveys and everything for that land, which they've taken. And they're also they also want to do some soil samples, which will help with the drainage issues that we're having. Right now, basically, what's happening there is when we get the rain, there's not enough sand in the dirt to really push that to the piping, which pulls the water away from the fields. What this study will do is show us what we need to do to improve the sand levels and or drainage piping so we can have playable surfaces. But they're also doing this. These soil samples are not only going to be on fields 1 and 2 where we have the drainage issue. They're also going to go out to the parking area that we talked about briefly after the events. And this will also cover, if we need to do anything there, if we do get rains, if we use it as parking, if we need that gravel or anything like that. So basically, where we are right now to start this is, the board would have to approve to go with MBV to do this survey on the land to find out what we're working with. And then, there are stages beyond this. This is just stage 1. And then from there, they would present us with up to 3 options of how to remedy the fields, which I believe one of those options, after speaking with them, is they are going to look into the artificial turf as well. So the initial cost that they presented to us is just under $10,000 for the survey, soil samples and report and options. And then from there, that's where we decide. Go ahead, Brian. Sorry.
No. After you were done. When I looked at the bid they gave you, they talked, I forget whether it was lot B or D, but I think we need them to look at both lots.
Yes,
and
yes.
The pickleball originally down on lot B, the contractor talked about problems with the retention ponds. We need them looking at the retention pond too. So let's not spend $10,000 instead of $15,000. Let's spend the right amount of money to look at the whole drainage system and do this once. Because we as a board do not want to get all these activities out here and then find out that we only asked 2 questions when we should have asked 4. Let's fix it right.
Yeah, looking at all the property that we own and looking at what the options are, because I agree, I was going to raise that, lot B.
Mike,
Understood.
is that something that's pretty easy to resolve with this contract?
Oh, absolutely. I've already had them do it once. They could probably have it back to us by the end of the day with any adjusted numbers on that.
Okay, perfect. What do
And all,
you need
and all
from
that
us?
would be, I'm sorry, basically what that would be, they already have the drawings and surveys for the entire corridor. That just might increase the soil sample test from 8 to maybe 10. There's 2 additionals. But I will have that
Okay.
information for.
Great, thank you. Board, any comments or questions? I think we still have some other, I'll open it to you in a minute, Steve. Any other comments from the board?
I appreciate the work that Mike has done already, and I'd like to move forward. And this is a low-cost investment to learn more about what our solutions would be, some options would be.
Thank you. Mike, what do you need from us?
Basically, I just need the okay to go ahead to let MBV Engineering do the surveys and studies.
Okay. Does anybody you're on mute, Brian.
Do we do a motion to spend an amount up to X? I mean, it sounds like Mike is being frugal. What if we did a motion to proceed with, to authorize proceeding with the engineering study for an amount up to $20,000? And I think we were at 9,000 right there, and he said a couple thousand to add. We give a little flexibility, but then we make sure we look at all the way down to the retention pond.
Yeah.
Mike, is that reasonable, Mike, for that motion?
Absolutely. That would work.
Okay.
Hey
Do I
guys,
have
I
a
have
second?
one quick
Go ahead,
question. If
Well,
we
let me-
before we go into
Yes,
this,
got it.
okay,
Got a
go for it.
second.
Whatever
Got a
you want to do.
I was gonna say, I just wanted to get a second really quick, and then I'll absolutely
Got
open
it.
it up.
Got it. Second.
Thank-
So the one thing that I was looking at is, and I'm sorry because I'm a little distracted. I'm trying to go ahead and run through some emails from when the construction happened with the field complex and so on, and everything. I actually went through, some emails because back when construction was started with concerns about the drainage over there. So are we talking about the entire corridor drainage as a whole? And are we going to, is there a reason why we're not going to work with Mark maybe, who was part of that from the beginning for that area? He just has some familiarity with everything. So it was only a couple of years ago. That's why I'm trying to find that information on my end. But
I definitely think we should look at drainage for the entire civic corridor, because I don't want to throw good money after bad. I want to just do it once right, because if we're getting behind this idea of using B and using D and everything else that we're talking about here, let's please do it right.
no, and I agree with that. I'm just saying that it was only what, 2018 when we had Hanson and Walter and Associates go ahead and do everything with the drainage for the field area. So is there anything that they did incorrectly that is really is that the reason why we have this issue right now? So I want to acknowledge that, and if that's the case, get them involved or have them communicate, basically, you know, almost like a guarantee of their work back with a new vendor, if that's what we're choosing to do, with why they didn't do the things they did, so we're not just going in circles.
Yeah, I actually agree with you, Kevin. I know that's something that might be. I don't want to read into. And I don't want to read into Steve's hand either. No, it's
yeah, exactly. It's both sides. It's a
Yeah.
hard one, but we spent a lot of money very recently,
Yeah.
and I just have a hard time with that specifically.
So Mike, can you share with us? Did we do anything at all with Hanson and Walter, and or is there a reason behind kind of splitting it up a little bit? You're on mute. Or you're not on mute. Are you still there, Mike?
I am here. My
Oh, there
phone
you
was
go.
on mute. Sorry about that.
Okay, it's okay.
No, the reason that I'm going with MBV is I wanted to get a fresh set of eyes on the situation. The MBV is a very well vetted engineering company, and this is exactly what the type of the work that they do. And considering that the investment in the grand scheme of things to do this study was not a big, I mean, not 9 to 20,000, it's a good amount of money. But in the grand scheme of things, just to get something in here that doesn't have any influence, I thought it would be a better idea to get a fresh eyes on this situation. It's the same process that any engineer would do. I've done a lot of research on this. Soil samples are the biggest thing. They're probably going to go all to the same lab. But that was the main reason why I went with MBV, is just to get fresh eyes on the situation. They were able to look at all the drawings, surveys, and everything that were done previously. So I don't know if that answers the question.
Totally. Yeah, no, good. A fresh set of eyes is a good thing. I'm going to go ahead, board. If you're good with this, I'm going to go ahead and open it up to Steve. We have a motion in a second. Are you good with that?
Yeah.
Okay, Steve, you go ahead.
Yeah, thanks, Steve Northridge, 1130 Tapestry Drive. Sort of along the same lines that Kevin brought up, is that my concern is that we had a contractor that built the fields, we had a contractor that built the CDD building, we had a contractor that built the road, we had a contractor that built the dog park. All these things, I think we need to go back to the contractor. If they had to have a licensed professional engineer, a civil engineer, to seal the plans and submit them. I mean, I think there has to be some liability here on their side that they have to take responsibility for. I think we should at least get their opinion on what the situation is. I'm certainly not opposed to get an independent view, and that could be another way to go about it, get an independent view from an engineer, and then go back and then process maybe litigation with some of these companies. But I think there's got to be some responsibility. I mean, you can't spend $4 million on fields and have problems with drainage issues. I mean, that seems fundamental to when you build fields, that drainage is something that's dealt with. So like I said, the $10,000 to $20,000 is not really material in this particular time, and it's probably worthwhile spending the money. But I think we do have to keep our eyes wide open regarding the contractors that were involved in all these facilities, the fields, the CDD building, the road itself, the dog park, and figure out how we're going to deal with that. Do we deal with the contractors up front, or do we go at them after we get the report back from the engineers? That's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you, Steve. I appreciate that. I don't want to not answer the hands that are up for Joseph and Eileen. So I see you there. A couple of quick things. We are running really short on time. It's already 11:20, and we have a couple other things to go through here. I think the board right now is on the same page, but I want to make sure, if indeed you wanted to speak on this and and it's important, I will recognize you. Joseph, did you still want to say something?
if a workshop or some other meeting is going to be convened and organized at this point to discuss the options or to brainstorm, as Brian really wants to get everyone kind of involved, then my comments can be brought up at that point.
Okay, perfect. Yeah, we just want to get our next step going through with regards to getting this drainage and I think before we do anything, we need to know what we have. So I agree with you, Joseph. We will be doing more open on that one.
And very quickly in regards to drainage, everyone, if you've done or are familiar with the fields, the drainage solution that was provided for the fields is one of the lower end versions of drainage that are for these types of sports complexes. Not knowing or second guessing anything, it was probably what was approved and pushed through. And as everyone has mentioned at several occasions, the whole process of how these fields kind of went through kind of rushed a lot of decisions. So it's not necessarily something that was done incorrectly, but it was something that may not have worked best for the location it's in.
Thank you, Joseph. Any other comments from the board before we call the vote? I will.
Just one quick comment on the workshop. I think a workshop would be very valuable, but we should schedule the workshop after we've got the engineering information back so we can inform the community. But the sooner Mike gets everything back to us feedback wise and we start these conversations, the better.
Yeah.
Totally agree. Go ahead, Susanna.
Yes, Brian, I just want to confirm on your motion about proceeding with the engineering study that those funds are coming out of the capital improvements.
Yeah, this is for the civic corridor, so I think it would be capital improvements. That is correct.
Okay, we'll add that in. Thank you.
Now, just to be clear, we did have a moratorium on this, which is probably why she wanted to clarify this. So are we good with continuing with this understanding that this is not something that is something imperative moving forward for the June 30th timeline? Is that reasonable, board?
Yes, it's gathering information so we can make decisions on facilities. This is not a facility. This is not it's not an amenity.
Yeah,
I just wanted to make sure.
The moratorium was also on committing significant funds. I think we're going to have to spend money along the lines to do a good design thing so that we've got intelligence. So, but it's a great question, and we probably should on these motions about that saying out of capital funds to make it perfectly clear that we're doing this.
Yep, I just want to make sure that we were all on the same page so that we didn't have anybody in the future, the reason why, as to the rationale as to why we're doing it. Kevin and Diana, you're good with proceeding with this, understanding that it's coming out of that funds?
Probably going to be voting no on this right now, and that's okay. I mean, I go against the grain, it happens, but it's more so I'd like to go ahead and understand why we're here first and have that communication with Hanson Walter, to go ahead and give that opportunity first, but that's the reason why.
Okay, thank you. So the issue is not coming out of the funds, it's the timing based upon the knowledge we have.
Yeah, I mean, the sod was only laid March 2019, so this is something that they need to look at.
Fair enough. Okay. Then on that note, I will call the vote. Brian?
Yes.
Diana?
Yes.
Kevin?
No.
David?
Yes.
And I'm yes. Motion passes, but I understand where you're coming from. Yeah, go ahead.
And just to point with, to Kevin's point, I think that can be pursued at the same time. I mean, this is moving along, Mike's point about an independent assessment. We move forward on that, but I think we can also investigate the other and just see.
I actually think that my feeling is that as we investigate per Mike's comments, we'll have a better understanding as to what we need to do with regards to Hanson and Walter. So
yes.
I agree. Spring Park pool deck. Mike, is this you again?
It is me again.
All yours.
Okay, the reason I brought this to a workshop is in our reserve study, we have in there $122,571 allocated towards a new pool deck over at Spring Park. With that information, I got a number of bids to come out and do just that. What I started to find out is, one, a lot of people don't want to tear up a pool deck that size. But if we want to do it correctly, which is, again, why I wanted to go to the workshop for clarification, is to replace the pool deck correctly is to remove the existing deck completely. And then building out and put pavers in on top of that. The pavers, one, albeit aesthetically, it would look great, but also if we have any issues with plumbing, it's very easy to access it. The issue that we ran across to do that properly, to remove the entire deck, is they did not factor in the pool house or heritage hall. The footings and foundation for both those buildings have to be factored in if they are removing the entire deck, which is engineering 101. So basically, as they pull it away, they're going to have to support the buildings. And that is going to increase the cost dramatically above the 120 that was allocated. That's why I wanted to bring this to you. The bids that I received, I had bids that came in at the 50 to 60 range, which was just to put pavers on top of the existing deck, maybe remove some sections, but it's strictly cosmetic. I do know we do not have any active leaks under the deck, but we have had some settling, and that's what I think brought this to the reserve study initially. So long story short, from the quotes I received to replace the deck properly, we're now looking at costs of close to $500,000. And then you're looking at prices of might as well build a new pool. Or we can go and just cover the deck, which aesthetically would look nice, but that would be around the 60 to 80 range, depending on what vendor we wanted to go to. So basically, the reason I wanted to bring this to you is, the reserve had us replacing the deck for a certain price. To do that correctly is almost 3 times that amount. So I guess going to the board looking for guidance on how we would want to approach this. I think if we did a cover of the deck, you're going to get 5 to 7, possibly 10 years of life out of it. And again, we don't have any plumbing issues currently at the pool. But again, that would not be a total deck replacement.
So you're recommending just to be. No, you're good. You're
No,
good.
you're
I
good.
just want to make sure. I just want to get clarification. So you're recommending that we not do that because of the cost, but instead to just do the covering, correct?
I think after being able to see everything, I think that would be the best route. But again, I know, we were in there to replace the deck, and I don't want to go in and cover it up, and it is not what the reserve study was for.
Got it. Thank you, Mike. Go ahead, Brian.
For this amount of money, I'm not comfortable making a decision at all without actually almost walking it a little and having it explained much better. I mean, when we start talking about multiples of $100,000 or anything else, I would really like a little more education.
Yeah, this is Kevin. I'll agree with that statement overall. I mean, I'm not disagreeing that it's likely necessary. I mean, I haven't been over to that pool in probably close to a year now, but I know the edges around the pool are definitely kind of at that height that it could be a tripping hazard, because it is kind of sinking and settling, and that happens. I go ahead and I redid my kitchen once. I wanted to go ahead and just redo the floors. And well, sure enough, I had walls coming out, cabinets changing, appliances, and so on. And I do see that side happening with this area as well. If we turned around and said, let's take care of the floor, then you have the foundation. The other thing that I just want to recognize is there was a conversation once about addressing the building there, right? And I think an expansion or something like that, that might be the time to go ahead and evaluate that full project. So I think we should really look at maybe either a cheaper option right now than what you're showing, or look at a full assessment of that entire parcel, if you will.
Thank you, Kevin. David, go ahead.
Mike, along those lines, is there a standard life for a pool if well maintained? I mean, do we expect? Yeah, no. The whole, you said, you talk about $500,000. Does a pool have a life?
In the HOA world, it's probably going to for write-offs and all like that.
No. But my point is, is there going to be a time if this bought us whatever it was, 5, 7, 8, 10 years, does a pool have infrastructure problems that are pretty anticipated? You know, you expect an AC unit to last, I don't know, 15 years. Do you expect a pool to last forever, or does it last 30 years? I mean, what's the history of pools?
With the equipment, one thing, I came from a salt environment to here, so we definitely get more life here than I did on 30A. But I mean, everything does have a life. You probably, for equipment, you're looking at 10 years or under. I know with our geothermal, the way that we're maintaining those, I mean, you do get extended life with those, and they're, you know, the parts go here and there. It's not replacing the entire system. I know the question you're asking. I think with the trip hazard, I think it's something that you guys might want to do a quick visit of the pool deck.
Yeah, I think Brian's point's a valid one.
Yeah, I mean, and Kevin mentioned it too. I mean, we do have a trip hazard out there on the heritage side of the pool. So I think if we could schedule a site visit on that, and for now, my recommendation would be if we just do a resurfacing of the pool and not a pool deck replacement. Yeah. I think with the condition of the pool equipment we're at now, I think that would be the best investment. And as Kevin mentioned, there were talks of other pool amenities in that area. That's something for down the road, I think.
Yeah, good.
So David, I actually have a different way that I kind of want to ask that same question that you're asking. Susan might actually be able to help us with it. In the reserve study, what do they turn around and say is like the cap for the replacement or the useful life of a pool or anything like that? Do they provide that kind of information? They just give a general.
She's saying
you're on mute. No, there's not. Okay.
Interesting. Okay. All right.
Brian, go ahead.
Yeah, I think if we're going to go down this path, other than spending nominal amounts, because I'm reading Joseph's comment that he typed in and thought about it as Kevin was making his comments too. If we're going to look at this, then we may very well want to look at the whole building. And, you know, we're always talking about how we need dance space and we need this or that. I mean, if we're going to spend a lot of money, let's spend a lot of money, but then solve 2 or 3 problems at once. And maybe this is where David is heading. You know, if we can spend $30,000 or $40,000 and make it last 3 or 4 years, great. But then maybe we have to think about a whole refurbishment of the building plus the pool so that we solve a couple of problems.
Great, thank you. On this, because it looks like they are not looking for anything from us today, and it's 11:32. So I think your goal today, Mike, was just to bring this to our attention and put it at the forefront so we can make sure that we're making the right decision and we're not just doing a check of the box with regards to what our reserve study says. Is that accurate?
That is accurate.
Okay, and we want to make sure that we address any tripping hazards and safety issues in a timely manner, meaning ASAP.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, perfect. So I'm going to leave this to management to determine when you need to bring this back to the board, or if we need to go out there in person, reach out to find out how we can do that. Is that all reasonable, board?
I would really like us to do a walkthrough if we can find a time that's pretty convenient so that we can all see it and understand.
Okay.
I'll schedule that.
So, thank you, Susanna. And Mike, I appreciate that too. Is there anything else with regards to the Spring Park pool deck or Spring Park area that we need to discuss now? Perfect. And let's go ahead and go on to future workshop topics. If I remember correctly, Susan and Susanna, for next Friday, our next workshop is November the 13th. I know we wanted to do the RFP open discussion kind of for the community, making sure that everybody has their time to give their insight and thoughts as to what they would like to see in an RFP, meaning what services would they like to see, if there's additional services and things like that you'd like to see from the management company. Is there anything else from the, what else was on the agenda that we had for the 13th?
So far we also had Ken Lee presenting his early contract renewal
from Celebration Sanitation. Can we put him on first for our agenda too for that one? Sure. Mm-hmm. Great. Is there anything?
We had amphitheater and security at Lakeside for discussion at some point.
Do we need it for the 13th or do we need to postpone it? Because I don't know. Okay, no, I I just want to make sure, yeah, I just want to make sure that we have, that for next week, at least we're covered. I want to give as much time as possible. So amphitheater and lakeside security are coming up. Perhaps when we do our, the amphitheater might be a good opportunity for us to have a conversation. We're opening it up to what our amenities overall. But I know there was some things timeliness because it's not looking so hot. So go ahead, Diana.
Do we need to have any further workshop on Microsoft Teams so we can get that? Are we at that point, or do we do they have everything they need?
Brian, I think you have some insight to that.
They have everything they need. They're getting ready to buy the licenses, and then what will be set up is actually the training session. So it won't be a public conversation, but it'll be a training session with people who are going to go on it and stuff like that. The goal is still to move it so that by January 1, we're all on it. And I had a meeting yesterday with Jim Hayes, or phone call, and told him, we really want to replace Zoom and get into having Teams so that we can have the virtual meetings and not the feedback issues and all that. So they've heard it. So this is their priority one.
Good.
Okay, thank you.
Do we need to do that? Do we need to do that for December?
Well, they'll set up, this training sessions will be small training sessions, and they'll build it around what is convenient for the people who are going to be involved in a training session. So that'll be something that happens at 5:30 at night for 4 people or something like that.
Okay, so we don't need to do anything else with regards to this initiative in a public or in a workshop environment.
That is a correct statement.
Okay, perfect. Is there anything else that we need, that you had questions on board with regards to workshops?
Do we need to have anything about the events happening in town center, as I mentioned on Wednesday?
I will, I think I sent this message to the board. I did have a conversation with Paige Pierce, and he was not aware of this. This is a CROA issue, and he is pursuing it on a CROA level. So yes, I did reach out after it was brought to our attention on Wednesday evening, and Paige, like I said, he was not aware of it, and he is he's working his way to see what all he needs to do from a CROA perspective on that. I don't have any answers.
Similar to what we've done with the county and other entities for Halloween, will this board be considering that same kind of a path?
I will leave that to the board to discuss that. If they would like to do that, we can certainly put it on our board agenda for November if you wish to do that. Board?
It will be on the CROA board agenda.
It'll be on the CROA agenda. Okay.
Yes, and he's had some meetings on it for as far as TCC goes. So he is working on it, and he asked for it to be placed on the November board agenda.
For CROA.
What date is the CROA meeting?
17th, if I remember right.
17th.
Okay.
And I also believe, Vanessa, that he told you it was going to be on the CJC board meeting too.
Correct, because it is a CJC issue also, in which case CROA will be represented on that one also.
I would encourage residents who have an opinion on this one and everybody to go to that CJC and CROA meeting and be heard, because that will be the most effective way to do this, because Paige is the guy who's got to take the stand. I think it's very fair issue.
So
wait just a second. Neil, go ahead.
Yeah, Brian, I don't want to speak for you, but if you don't mind me piggybacking on that, yes, I would also encourage our homeowners and our residents that are concerned about this to not only be present and log into that meeting, but it really does help us if there are significant concerns that can't properly be expressed just maybe with a phone call or social media. Can you please email my team and I your concerns so that we can kind of start putting some information together of what the issues are, what the objections are, and that gives us time ahead of the meeting to look at it and understand it and be able to address the questions, because sometimes it's hard when the questions start flying in during the meeting if we don't have the opportunity to prepare for it ahead of time.
Good point, thank you.
So just a way of circling back around on this, the CJC meeting follows our November 13th workshop. And to Kevin's point, I agree that this board should take a stand as we did with Halloween. However, it may get resolved at the CJC meeting. If it does not get resolved, perhaps we could have a board workshop that Friday the 20th. Because otherwise things are unfolding and the holiday is going to be right after Thanksgiving, all those scheduled events.
I
So-
showed NOAA and CJC being on November 17th.
Correct. It's a Tuesday.
November 13th workshop to the 20th, so we could meet after that. That's fine.
Or
both,
but
or both.
I'm actually, because I think we have our board meeting is that following day, the 18th. So
Yeah.
we can just put it on our agenda. We'll just put it up. And then we'll have information. Then
That's
we'll
fair.
know
That's
what,
fair.
then,
That's
go
fair.
ahead.
If I can back up for just a minute, based on a couple of the comments, we didn't solicit these comments for Halloween for a one-day unofficial, unsanctioned, nobody does events. We didn't do that. And this board is still burnt by the funds that Lexington has not paid back, that they burnt us with the 4th of July situation. So I'm having a hard time not following the same process. The process basically created itself with Halloween and the actions that were taken. And I believe that the same actions that happened at that time should be happening now. And this board needs to recognize that if we're not comfortable with one day of an unofficial event that nobody sponsors and nobody creates and nobody gathers, then we can create that same response to another board, just like we have to the county about Halloween and soliciting, making sure we have extra police force, whatever the case is. It's not an event, we can't stop it, but how do you limit it? Well, it's just very intriguing to me with the now snowing event.
What you're asking for something, but I don't know what it is. So help me and give me some specific things that you're looking for from us. That way we can, if you want to put it in a motion, whatever you want to do, but I need more direction from what you're looking for, Kevin.
This board turned around and said that they wanted to go ahead and stop Halloween in loose terms, right? And prevent the crowds and prevent those from coming in. It was a hard conversation to have, but we had to have it for the safety of all of our residents because of our health concerns. So we recognize that we can't stop it, but we discouraged it. So let's just say we can't stop now snowing from happening. Are we going to go ahead and get those same signs and put them out on the boulevard and out on 192 and say Celebration is not participating in now snowing events? And that's why I'm trying to get this conversation going a little sooner, because by the time the 17th, the 13th, all that, it really is going to be too late.
Okay, so I'm still asking then if you want something, make a motion for what you're looking for, because I'm not sure what you're looking for unless there's somebody else.
There have been times when a letter has gone out from, let's say, the CROA president with an opinion about something to other entities in the community. It never took a motion, it never took anything. It just was, this is how
actually,
this board feels about a situation.
All of it is always taken a motion. I have never, ever submitted anything without
not you specifically, just in history.
Just to be clear.
What we did for Halloween, though, is we said we wanted to discourage it. We reached out to the CDD, had actually reached out to us first, and then we had conversations with the CDD, and then it was joint reaching out to the county. This issue was brought up at the board meeting this week, and Vanessa reached out to Paige Pierce the next morning. I mean, I have no problem reacting to whether this is in the best interest and saying we discourage that, but people probably aren't going to pay attention to it till we get to the middle of November anyway. That's kind of my thought process. I'm not arguing with you. I'm just saying I think something actually did happen the very next morning from something that was started the day before.
And is that it was a FYI, I understood it, not so much a, this board is uncomfortable with that happening.
Vanessa, speak for yourself, but didn't
I can tell you exactly what I told Paige, and that was, I did not even vote for yes for the farmers market to reopen. I am certainly not comfortable with having people coming down and congregating downtown. That is exactly what I said.
I appreciate that's how you said it. I didn't know how it was said because it was a verbal conversation. I only got a follow-up of he was informed and he's taking some, he'll be reviewing it.
I also said I'm a vote of one. I am not a board because obviously it opened. So I was pretty upfront with my personal views on it. Again, it was not a representation of how the whole board felt.
Kevin, I will.
And I will
I
echo
will
that.
go on record right here on tape telling you I am not going to be comfortable with hundreds of people floating around downtown wearing maybe mask or maybe not wearing a mask and stuff like that. And, you know, I will be on the 13th meeting. I will be on the 17th meeting and the 18th meeting, and I will be a fan of signs if we have to. Mike Lunes.
And I'm in that same position. I just don't know if we need to have that in writing or if we'd be comfortable putting that in writing.
And I'm a ditto to what Brian just said.
Exactly. I agree as well.
Okay. So five of us here are very uncomfortable, and maybe a follow-up is a follow-on conversation with Paige that just says 5 out of 5 board members who are on a meeting on Friday are very uncomfortable with this, and we just hope it won't go forward.
A suggestion here that might be more powerful is if no one changes their opinion, let's wait to see what happens between now and the 13th. But we got the workshop on the 13th. We could have a 5-minute agenda item. Has anyone changed their opinion? And we could have a board resolution that we give to both the CJC and CROA board before their 17th meeting. And then
fantastic.
That's fine.
Then we fairly address what you want.
That's fine. That's fine.
So based on this, what I'm going to ask Susanna is if you could please add downtown Christmas or holiday events to our agenda. It's not called now. It's not called now snowing. That's why I don't want to say now snowing. So sorry about that. Yeah, it's exactly. So I want to make sure that that it's
on the agenda.
It's on the agenda, and I don't want to give it a name because I don't even.
Sorry, that was a response to Joseph. Sorry.
That's okay.
In concept, yeah.
Hey, Vanessa.
It's okay. Yeah.
Not that I need to say this, but I think it's important that our homeowners understand that myself and Susanna actually also spoke with Paige yesterday. So this isn't just a board member situation where there's a comfort level that's pushing boundaries. My leadership team and I at Town Hall have also communicated with Paige. We've expressed some of our concerns. So it's not about us taking sides, but I do think it's important our homeowners that are listening today know that it's not just the board that's looking into this. Your management team is also using the resources it has to try to find some solution that's not going to contradict everything we've implemented thus far. And Kevin, I'm not trying to steal your thunder, but I feel like that's kind of where you were going a little bit. Is it's a contradiction to everything else up to today.
Yeah,
that's exactly it. Thank you. It's just I clearly am very frustrated about the situation. So thank you all.
Yes, sir.
So on that note, we have our agenda items for November the 13th. As CROA or as our management team become more aware of anything that's going on, and any communication to the board would be greatly appreciated, so that on the 13th we can have all the information possible.
Definitely.
Perfect. Thank you so much. On this note, is there any other comment from the board before we adjourn?
Goodbye,
Susan. I was going to say, Susan, we're going to miss you, honey. Anything else? Are we good? Do I have a motion to adjourn?
To adjourn.
Happy Halloween.
Happy Halloween.
Happy Halloween. Bye, everyone.
Bye.
Thank you for joining.